So we are going to be doing about the Women's Battle Royal. So there's going to be like probably short videos. We're going to do about the WrestleMania one, the one where it was named a certain name. My dog just being an idiot. Luby, shut up. No, we don't need the noise, Luby. Quiet. But yeah, as I was saying before my dog rudely interrupted with her barking, yes, we're going to do about the one where it was named after somebody who has a lot of controversy about herself. So we're going to go into that. So we're just going to start about the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. So obviously it's a professional wrestling battle royal held at WrestleMania by WWE. So they receive a trophy. The inaugural battle royal was held during WrestleMania 34. The kickoff pre-show in 2018, and it was won by Naomi. The match returned at WrestleMania 35 in 2019, won by Camilla. This will be the final match. However, as the Battle Royal did not occur at WrestleMania 36 in 2020 due to concerns regarding COVID. Although the restrictions were lifted, there was no further matches that had been scheduled. The match was the female counterpart to the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which was introduced in 2014. The WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal was originally named the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal in honor of the Fabulous Moolah, who was billed as the pioneer of women's wrestling. However, her name was removed from this match after the backlash from fans due to controversy surrounding Moolah's past. Well, that is what the person we are going to go into to why this name. So obviously there, Fabulous Moolah. She has a lot of issues in her past where people have come forward. So we've had a lot of different battle royals. So we're just going to get into the history of it, and then we'll get into the controversy later. But I'm going to put this in controversy mainly because of just the fact that it's controversy in the name, because of the person. There's the reason. Like in general, the battle royal doesn't have controversy; it's just the name. But we will get into that in a minute. So, to be established Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal in 2014, male wrestlers after 4 years on an episode of Raw. The promotion announced a female version to occur at WrestleMania 34. Prior to this, the only other women's battle royal to occur at WrestleMania was WrestleMania 25 in 2009, titled the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal. The match was famously won by Santina Marella, who was a male wrestler who was disguised as Santina. The women's battle royal established for the WrestleMania 34 was originally titled the Fabulous Moolah Battle Royal in honor of the Fabulous Moolah. The winner would receive the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Trophy, made in likeness of Moolah. After controversy over the decision to honor Moolah, WWE changed the name to WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. The trophy was subsequently renamed, and it was redesigned as a simple gold cup with tassels atop. So, first ever match for WrestleMania was won by Naomi, who eliminated Bayley. The match was scheduled to return at WrestleMania 35, thus establishing the match as a yearly tradition. It's the second match occurred during WrestleMania 35's kickoff pre-show, and it was won by Carmella, who last eliminated Sarah Logan. Third one that was meant to occur was set at WrestleMania 36 in 2020, but COVID happened, so it never happened, and it hasn't happened since. But when COVID was lifted, Andre the Giant one did return, but the WrestleMania one didn't. So we're going to get into like the winners and stuff, and then we'll get into controversy afterwards. So there's only been two, Naomi and Carmella. So that was quick. We're going to get into participants. So the people who have done it have been in it. So in WrestleMania 34, Bayley, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Carmella, Dakota Kai, Dana Brooke, Kairi Sane, Kavita Devi, Lana, Liv Morgan, Mandy Rose, Mickie James, Naomi, Natalia, Peyton Royce, Ruby Riott, Sarah Logan, Sasha Banks, Sonya Deville, and Tanara Conti, who is now in AEW. And then for WrestleMania 35, Asuka, Candice LeRae, Carmella, Dana Brooke, Ember Moon, Kairi Sane, Lana, Liv Morgan, Mandy Rose, Maria Kanellis, Mickie James, Naomi, Nikki Cross, Ruby Riott, Sarah Logan, Sonya Deville, and Zelina Vega. So they're all the people that have been in both, either one or the other or both. So we're going to get into the name controversy now. So, right, so we're going to talk about the name controversy, which is about this woman that's on the screen, Fabulous Moolah. So the decision to hold the Battle Royal in honour of the Fabulous Moolah drew outrage. So, Tafule Ahmed of the Newsweek wrote that Moolah isn't quite the bastion of female empowerment she is proclaimed to be. With years of allegations that she had monopolised women's wrestling in North America, taken a large percentage of women's pay and sexually exploited women under her mentorship. And then Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net criticised the tribute as it is not exactly meshed with the WWE wanted their women's division to push to represent. And then David Bixpan of Deadspin pointed out that given Moolah's alleged abuse, fans were particularly turned off by WWE's personal describing Moolah as a trailblazer for women's equality. WWE also promoted Moolah having changed the gender norms of a once male-dominated sport, which, quite honest with you, she did at the time. But obviously with the allegations, and then WWE reversing the fact that women didn't, by making them divas and making them do all this stuff in the 90s, kind of went back. And then, in my mind, if she, out of everybody, kind of pushed even more in the 90s by being in that, but then they won't do that with her because of her sex tapes and all the stuff she did outside of the ring, the Playboy. So I did find it kind of weird how they did that for Fabulous Moolah when she did a lot worse than China. Well, it was allegedly did worse than China. Because I can't say it because of legal reasons, I have to say allegedly. But I don't understand why they did that. Because if you can't even put somebody who did some things, make bad decisions, because they were struggling, into the Hall of Fame on their own, why are you doing this for someone who hurt people on purpose for her own gain? It doesn't make really that much sense. So I get why, because I was quite pissed off about it when I found out. But anyway, so we get back into it. But Bixen Span described that Moolah, by wrestling and teaching her students in-ring style, low on athleticism and heavy on hair pulling, relegated women's wrestling to much more of a sideshow instead of legitimate headline attraction, in the previous era. Mad Maxine, a wrestler trained by Moolah, commented that Moolah was the most monstrous person she had ever met, and that in wrestling, about generating heat, that you can't draw more than naming a match for Fabulous Moolah. And then on March 12th, Change.org petitioned to appear on demanding WWE change its name to becoming Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal, nearing its 10,000 signature goal. Initially, WWE reacted by disabling the comments section of their YouTube video that announced Moolah's Battle Royal. Later, Snickers, the primary sponsor of WrestleMania 34, called a decision to honour Moolah unacceptable and said that they were engaging with WWE to express their disappointment. And then WWE, on March 14th, renamed the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal, removing Moolah's name from the event, and the trophy was also renamed and redesigned. So that is the controversy to the WrestleMania naming. It's only a short one. It's not really a big controversy for WWE, considering there's a lot more. But we are going to get into this video is also going to be about Fabi Moolah herself as well. I just thought I'll get that in as well. To get with kill a bird with two birds with one stone. You know what I mean? And then so we're going to get into the allegations of Fabrice Moolah. So we're going to get into her. So Fabrice Moolah began a career working with Billy Wolfe and his wife, wrestler and trainer Mildred Burke. They also won as well as working alongside professional wrestler Buddy Rogers, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. She won the NWA World Women's Championship in 1956 and was the prominent holder of the title for 28 years. She's overall an 8-time Women's World Champion and to this day holds the record for the longest reigning World Champion combination of all her reigns. In the 1980s, she joined WWF, later WWE, as part of the Rock and Wrestling Connection storyline, feuding with Cyndi Lauper and Wendy Richter, the latter of whom defeated her for the WWF Women's Championship in the main event of Brawl and the Brawl to end it all in '84. Moolah regained the Women's Championship on 2 further occasions before entering semi-retirement towards the end of the decade. She continued to make sporadic appearances for WWF and WWE until her death, often comedic roles with longtime friend Mae Young. And in 1999, she became the oldest champion in history of professional wrestling up to that point of time. She won the Women's Championship for the final time at the age of 76. During her lifetime, Moolah was lauded as a leading figure of women's professional wrestling and considered one of the industry's most known lady wrestlers. She became the first woman to be inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame in '95 and also is a member of the NWA Hall of Fame and the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. However, her legacy has been since damaged in following year from her death, when allegations surfaced that she exploited female wrestlers under the tutelage of both financially and sexually. So, in her career, we're going to start with the career basically, and then we're going to get into the allegations. This will be under controversy and superstar info, just because then it's like in both, but it will be named Fabrice Moolah info controversy along with WrestleMania controversy. I think I'll have to think of a good name for this video. But yeah, we're getting into her career. So her early career is 1949 to 1955. She began a career with Mildred Burke. Mildred Burke's husband, Billy Wolfe, the dominant women's promoter of the time. She competed with many established stars like Mae Young, Cecilia Blevins, and Mildred Burke. Wolfe was notorious for advising his wrestlers to enter into sexual relationships with either himself or competing promoters to ensure additional bookings, a practice which Ellison refused to go along with. She, however, soon began a romance with Johnny Long. Long later introduced Ellison to Jack Pfeiffer, who gave her the moniker Slave Girl Moolah. By the early 50s, Moolah was a valet for Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, accompanying him to the ring, providing eye candy for male audiences, and assisting Rogers against his opponents. Ellison broke up with partnership with Rogers, kept pushing because Rogers kept on pushing her to begin a sexual relationship. She then served as a valet for the Elephant Boy Tony Olivius. Olivius was Mexican but had very dark skin. It caused controversy when Ellison, a white woman, would kiss him on the cheek during the ring entrance routine. At one show in Oklahoma City, a man who thought that Olivius was a black man attempted to stab Ellison with a knife for kissing him. Moolah later left Pfeiffer's promotion and began wrestling under Boston promoters Tony Santos and Paul Bowser. In 1955, she began working with Vince McMahon Sr.'s Capital Wrestling Corporation. And then she was world champion into the section of being world champion 1956 to 1983. On September 18th, 1956, Moolah defeated Judy Grable in a 13-woman battle royal to win the vacant World Women's Championship, which says a lineage with the NWA World Women's Championship. She was not immediately recognised by anyone as the NWA champion because Billy Wolfe, with whom she had conflict earlier in her career, still controlled the promotion. After the match, Vince McMahon Sr. dubbed Ellison the new ring name, the Fabulous Moolah. Subsequently, June Byers came out of retirement to challenge Moolah for a title match. During the match, Moolah acted as the aggressor, pinned Byers, and retained the championship. Moolah's first World Championship reign lasted over 10 years. Moolah successfully defended the belt against the top female wrestlers in the world, such as Judy Grable, Donna Cristianello, while also purporting to befriend the biggest celebrities of the day. Moolah claimed in her first book, First Goddess of a Squared Circle, that she formed friendships with Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis. After Byers retired in 1964, Moolah was subsequently recognised as the official NWA champion, thus making her the undisputed women's world champion. Nonetheless, Moolah dropped the belt to Betty Butcher, although she regained the title just weeks later. She also traded the belt with Yukiko Tomo during a tour of Japan in 1968. Moolah became the first woman to allow to wrestle in Madison Square Garden, which had previously banned women's wrestling. In fact, Moolah helped overturn the ban on women's wrestling in the entire state of New York, which New York State Athletic Commission lifted in June 1972. During her quest to overturn the ban, she flipped football player Roosevelt Rosie Grier onto his back on the Michael Douglas show. Moolah continued to an uninterrupted 8-year reign before losing to Sue Green at Madison Square Garden in 1976. Moolah regained her title a short time later. She also bought legal rights to the championship in the late 70s, and after losing the championship for 2 days to Evelyn Stevens in 1978, began another long reign, defending her title for another 6 years. Also in the 70s, Moolah had held the NWA Women's Tag Team Championship twice with Tony Rose. So we're going to get into the WWF in 1983 to 87. We're going to start with the Rock and Wrestling Connection, 1983 to 1987. So in 83, Vincent K. McMahon began expanding the WWF nationally, and Moolah sold him the rights to her Women's World Championship. Moolah agreed to appear exclusive for WWF, and thus became the first WWF Women's Champion. The following year, singer Cyndi Lauper began a verbal feud with manager Captain Lou Albano, who long had a relationship of being a villain. That brought professional wrestling to mainstream culture and storyline that became known as the Rock and Wrestling Connection. When it was finally time for Lupa and Albano to settle their differences in the ring, a matchup was scheduled for Albano to represent Moolah against the challenge of Lupa's protege Wendy Richter. After much build-up and hype, Fabrice Moolah lost the championship to Richter on July 23rd, 1984, the main event of the Brawl to end it all, which was broadcast live on MTV. Prior to the match, the WWF promoted Moolah as holding the championship for 28 years. After losing the title to Richter, Moolah aided Leonard Kai in defeating Richter for the title in February 1985. Richter won it back at the inaugural WrestleMania, but when Richter's relationship soured with the WWF, Moolah donned the mask as Spider Lady and regained the belt in November 25th, 1985 in a controversial decision. Richter was never told about that she would be losing the title and fell victim to the real-life screw job finish as the original screw job. Richter promptly quit the WWF afterwards, while Moolah continued to champion for another 2 years, including a 6-day reign by Velvet McIntyre. During a tour of Australia in 1986, before losing the belt to Sherry Martel in July 24th, 1987. Later, Captained a team at the Ignore or Survive series for Team Moolah, Velvet McIntyre, Rockin' Robin, and the Jumping Bomb Angels. Defeated champion Mortal and her team Lian Lakai, Judy Martin, Donna Cristiano, and Dawn Marie. Almost dropping stuff here. So I'm going to get into the American Wrestling Association. So on September 3rd, 1988, Moolah wrestled for the AWA World Women's Champion Medusa Maselli to a double DQ and on an independent card in Medina, Ohio. Afterwards, Moolah would retire from wrestling. So then she went to Ladies International Wrestling to 1990-2000. During the retirement, Moolah was promoted of Ladies International Wrestling in the 90s, based in North Carolina. Also, the shows were held in Las Vegas. Started wrestling again in '93 at the age of 70 when she was defeated Sunny Brook. On June 21st, 1996, she teamed with Mae Young in LIW's Golden Girls Extravaganza event in Las Vegas, where they wrestled Liz Chase and Laurie Lynn to a contest. Moolah continued wrestling for the promotion and even continued teaming with Young in 2000 while working for the WWF. LIWA shut down. Moolah would continue working for the WWF. So as you saw, I just changed the photo. So this is when she was in WWF. So she returned in 1995. This was when she went back at some point between 1999 and 2007. She was teamed with Mae Young a lot as a comedy act. Throughout the early 1990s, she made appearances in the video packages and at live WWF events. And in '95, she was the first female wrestler to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. And in the late '90s, Pat Patterson and Ellison began jokingly discussing combat for her, which resulted in Patterson contacting Vince McMahon about the possibility. And in '99, Moolah and Mae Young re-emerged in the WWF Women's Division. However, had since been moved away from the traditional athletic matchups of the past. Now featured women competing in sexually themed bikini contests and strip matches. Upon returning, Moolah and Young began appearing regularly in comedy roles. In 1999, September 9th episode of SmackDown, Jeff Jarrett invited Moolah at 76 into the ring and smashed his guitar over her head. And on the September 27th, 1999 episode of Raw, Moolah and Young defeated Ivory in a handicap match, evening gown match, which led to the title match at No Mercy. The WWF Women's Championship thus becoming the oldest champion ever, though she lost the title back to Ivory 8 days later. And on September 15th, 2003 episode of Raw, Moolah won a match against Victoria. Moolah had been promised the match for her 80th birthday, and became the first octogenarian to compete in the WWE ring. After Moolah's victory, the legend killer Randy Orton came out and performed an RKO on her. Moolah and Young made another appearance in New Year's Revolution in 2006, drawing a bra and panties gauntlet match, attacking Victoria and stripping her top. She also made a brief appearance in WrestleMania 23 and the 2007 draft lottery on June 11th, 2007. Her last appearance was before her death was at SummerSlam in August 2007 in the backstage segment with Vince McMahon and Raw General Manager William Regal. So that's been her career. So I think next we'll go through. I don't know whether to go through a promoting and a training because it seems a bit long. But you can always look at that later. So we're going to go into the reason why I actually started doing this video in the first place, which is a controversy. So I'm going to get into that. So financial and sexual exploitation. Journalist Dave Meltzer wrote an obituary for Moolah. He said that different promoters had very different ideas of what being professional meant. Wrestling historian Tim Hornbaker said that Moolah chose not to break the dishonest, greedy practice established by the mentor Billy Wolf. Pat LeBrade and Dan Murphy, in their books Sisterhood of the Squared Circle, wrote that Moolah's tactics could be just ruthless and cutthroat. Don Corleone's from The Godfather, Wendy, Victor, and Mad Maxine both claimed that Ellison did not actually train the wrestlers at the wrestling school. According to Victor, Ellison accepted payment for training fee, which at the time of Victor's training was $500, and had other female wrestlers within the camp, including Leona Kai, Judy Martin, Rona Little Heart, and Joyce Grable, trained the new recruits. These women did not get paid for their additional work as trainers. Richter also claimed that Ellison required all women to receive training at her camp to sign a contract that allowed Ellison to function as their booker and receive 25% of their booking fee. Trainers were also required to rent a duplex apartment on Ellison's property, and they were responsible for paying her rent and utilities. The training lasted 6 months, and it took up to 5 hours a day inside a wrestling ring in a barn that lacked heating and air conditioning or fans. Mad Maxine said that due to owing Moolah both rent and training fees amounting to $1,500, the trainees went into debt to Moolah, and she controlled their lives. It was environmental ripe for abuse. Maxine also said that when she went to work for the WF, Moolah was at least taking half of her earnings. Debbie Johnson, another former trainee of Ellison, said that she was required to give Ellison 30% of her booking fee, and her paycheck was further reduced as Ellison deducted travel expenses, food, rent, utilities before paying her. As a result, Johnson worked for Ellison for 2 years before she received any money. Johnson said that Ellison would refuse to book certain women in her training camp if they angered her, and then Ellison monitored her and refused to let her have physical constraints in the training camp unless she was accompanied by someone else. Over the years, various female wrestlers have come forward with stories accusing Ellison of being a pimp who offered to provide various wrestling promoters with unsuspecting female wrestlers who would be used as sex objects. Penny Banner directly described Moolah as a pimp who, in return for money, rented her female trainers out in bulk to wrestling promoters so that the promoters and male wrestlers could have sex with them. Banner said that the women who were sent on these tours were not told of this arrangement ahead of time, and that those who refused to have sex with the wrestlers and promoters were raped. One of the most notorious accusations was from a family of Sweet Georgia Brown, Susie Mae McCoy, who was trained by Moolah, and her husband, Buddy Lee. The Columbia Free Times reported the allegations made by her daughter in 2006, in which she said that her mother told her that she was often raped and given drugs and made an addict in an intentional attempt by Ellison and Lee to control her. Ida Martinez, who wrestled during the 60s, also recalls that many regional promoters demanded personal services before they would pay female wrestlers. Ida Maxine described Moolah as an evil person, saying Moolah made money by sending trainees out to the guy in Arizona and pimped them out. In 2002, interview Luna Vachon claimed that when she was 16 years old and training at Ellison's camp, Ellison sent her out of state to be photographed by older men. Although she remained clothed during the photo shoots, Vachon stated that she felt taken advantage of by Ellison and the older man. Vachon also stated that her aunt, Vivian Vachon, witnessed Ellison's abusing alcohol and having sex with female trainers. Sandy Parker, a lesbian former pupil of Ellison, also claims that Ellison forbade her from going to gay bars and tried to press her to date men. Parker said that this was enraged her because Moolah was two-faced, because she had her own little dalliances that we all knew about. However, several former co-workers have spoken out in Ellison's defense. Shane Douglas said that he had never heard anyone speaking against Moolah during his career. Former female wrestler Beverly Shade also defended Moolah, claiming that Moolah wasn't that kind of person. Jerry Lawler also said that he had never heard or saw anything like that when Howard was in the business around Moolah and her girls. Former trainee Princess Victoria says that Moolah never pimped any women or used drugs, but she did take money from them. Michael McCoy, Sweet Georgia Brown's son, refuted the allegations made by his sister, stating that she has an agenda and the allegations are false. However, on the Dark Side of the Ring episode of Moolah, about Fabulous Moolah, Michael McCoy stated that he was indeed made to have sex with paying promoters. Bruce Pritchard said that she was protecting herself from promoters, and the only negative thing he heard of her was that she took a percentage of their pay, which was laid out in their contract clearly before they even start training day one. So manipulation of women's wrestling in the United States, as well as allegedly exploiting female wrestlers sexually. Ellison was accused of using influence to control women's wrestling scene and assure other women did not get given greater recognition. In addition to being a key participant in the original Screwjob and Wendy Richter, Ellison used her influence to take over the spot originally held by Jose Mad Maxine. So on the animated series Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, Maxine was about to receive a big push by Vince McMahon, but left the WWF shortly afterwards, as Ellison was unwilling to provide her with additional bookings. Maxine said that Moolah never told her about the WWF's plans to include her in the cartoon. Numerous other former trainees defected from Ellison after growing tired of sharing their paychecks with her. Women wrestlers, including Vivian and Luna Vachon, Andy Casey, Darling Dagmar, moved into other regions where Ellison had less control and negotiated their own payouts with promoters. Both Judy Martin and Lena Kai told in later interviews that Moolah would collect the women's wrestling pay from promoters, and after taking out her own pay, would only give the girls half the money they were owed, keeping half of their own pay for herself plus her own pay, and telling them that all the promoters gave her to give them. Martin stated that shortly before Ellison left the WWF in 1988, shortly after falling out with Martin and Kai due to the Ellison no longer receiving their booking fees, she sabotaged the duo while they were touring Japan. Martin stated that Ellison contacted Japanese promoters and informed them that Jumping Bomb Angels was supposed to drop the WWF Women's Tag Team Champions, the Glamour Girls, before Martin and Kai returned to the United States. This was contrary to the booking decision made by Pat Patterson before the Japanese tour began. Unable to reach Patterson by telephone, Kai and Martin agreed to win the titles from the Angels since Ellison had already misinformed the Japanese promoters. Martin stated that upon return to the WWE, returned to the US, Patterson was angry with them and that no one within WWF made the decision for the title change. That due to the long-standing relationship with the company, the WWF refused to listen to their explanation of Allison's deceit. Shortly thereafter, the WWF phased out the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, and in a shoot interview, Leanna Kai told that had things gone as the WWF originally planned, the Glamour Girls would have had the title match against the Jumping Angels at WrestleMania, and that Ellison's actions had cost the four girls what would have been ultimately the biggest ever payday. Women that have chosen to continue allowing Ellison to work as their booker were kept under tight control. Velvet McIntyre was forced to compete against Ellison, whom McIntyre stated she didn't care for. At WrestleMania 2, instead of competing during all women tour Q8 with the group of Ellison's other female wrestlers, their WrestleMania 2 match lasted less than 2 minutes. the referee ignoring McIntyre's leg being on the ropes while she was being pinned. Women that did not agree to Allison's booking fees, face limited options. Rhonda Singh said that Allison contacted her and offered to let her wrestle Richter in a couple pay-per-views matches for WF. In 1985, she demanded that she received half of Singh's pay, a stipulation Singh was unwilling to accept. Penny Banner stated that her retirement was due to a large part of Allison refusing to allow any of her female wrestlers to accept bookings against Banner, which severely limited the number of bookings Banner was offered by promoters. So now we're going to get into her legacy. Now we've done her controversy. So Moolah's career spanned over 5 decades. She was overall 8-time world championship and is widely recognised as the longest reigning champion of any wrestler in the wrestling business, holding the NWA and the WWE Women's Champion for 10,075 days. Her last reign made history as becoming the oldest female wrestler in history to win the WWE Women's Champion at the age of 76. She was considered the most as an important figure in the forefront of women's wrestling to the 60s and 80s. Some of the notable trainees: Wendy Richter, Sherry Martel, Lena Kai, Mad Maxine, Donna Costanello. And on July 1st, 72, she was Vicky Williams. And Vicky Williams were the first woman to wrestle in Madison Square Garden for her impact and longevity and contributions. She became the first female inductee of the WWE Hall of Fame in 1995 and eventually Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2003. At the time of the death, Kevin Eek wrote that in the Baltimore Sun, the family Moolah did not just dominate women's wrestling for parts of 4 decades. He was women's wrestling. Moolah is unquestionably the most influential female wrestler in history. The Post and career columnist Mike Monaghan described her as one of the greatest female promoters that ever stepped in professional wrestling and the most powerful woman outside the squared circle. She was the only female performer to be included in WWE's top 10 superstars of all time DV, placed on 27th on the list. She was to be described as Moolah was recognized as the true pioneer and biggest legend in the history of WWE wrestling. In 2016, after the allegations had become more prevalent, Luke Winkie of Sports Illustrated listed Moolah as 69th greatest world champion of all time, greatest wrestler of all time, with a lengthy title reign. But wrote that he didn't feel great about it. Her house was located in Moolah Drive in South Carolina, a street named after her. Dave Meltzer described the women's wrestling as went way down under Moolah's tutelage, but also said they did not know if it was her fault. Meltzer said that although women used to headline and they were successful during the period of Moolah's control, women's wrestling popularity and product did not evolve. However, Meltzer did note that Moolah herself stood the test of time to remain culturally relevant after the Japanese female wrestlers of the 80s, more popular at the time, had faded from relevance. In March 2018, WWE announced the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal about all female wrestlers. It was scheduled for WrestleMania 4, named in honor of Moolah. The decision to hold the Battle Royal in honor of Moolah drew controversy after the allegations of exploitation against Moolah resurfaced. 2 days after the announcements, they renamed it, removing Moolah's name from the event. And a 2019 episode of The Dark Side of the Ring, broadcast by Iceland, examined the allegations against her in the aftermath of the Battle Royal name controversy. The episode repeated many of the allegations against her, but also featured comments from The Sun, Sweet Georgia Brown, and wrestlers Selena Majors and Beverly Shade, who defended her. If I choose not to like her because of what she did to me, that's fine. Princess Victoria stated, but Moolah needs to be remembered. She was an icon in the business. You can't take away her history because she was an asshole. So that's all I've got for that. For Fabulous Moolah, I do think she was an asshole. I usually say asshole, but she deserves to be She deserves. If the allegations were true, she deserves to be. She should have been punished for them. But unfortunately, when she was doing this stuff, it was a different time, so she wouldn't have got punished for them because she had what they're called. She had control over the people she was doing it to, so it wouldn't have mattered if someone had gone and said, but she should have been punished if they were true. I don't know if they were true. Obviously I didn't because I wasn't alive. But yeah, she should have been punished. I think, along with the allegations, it was a good thing they changed it. The Battle Royal's name, because it would have been bad. They've obviously got the Mae Young Classic, so they couldn't have named after Mae Young because Mae Young obviously didn't have any controversy. He doesn't have anything. She's known as one of the best, one of the good female wrestlers, no controversy at all. I do feel like if they do a battle royal for women again, it should be somebody who deserves it. It could be anyone, to be honest. I'm trying to think of someone who has no controversy but was a trailblazer, which is these and a lot of women who've been trailblazers with no controversy. China was a trailblazer, but she has controversy. She had controversy with her downfall and the fact she just made all these bad decisions on herself. I think probably a long time from now they might do it again because there's a few who are wrestling now who have made the wrestling better. Because there's Sarah Paige. I'm just gonna call her Paige because I can't still say words. Paige, Mercedes Monet, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Mickey James, Gail Kim. All these people now that have wrestled for a long time, have been wrestling for a long time, deserve to be recognised. I think China deserves to be recognised more, but unfortunately, with the decision she's made, the closest she's going to be recognised is being with DX, unless eventually in the future they decide we're going to put her in. But I can't say for sure, but I do think she deserves more recognition. But unfortunately, with her decisions, she ruined that for herself. Which I understand in a way why she had made bad decisions, China. But yeah, I don't think Fabrice Moolah, with what's the accusations that have been going on, they didn't take her out of the Hall of Fame. She's still in there, which fine. You know, she did do a lot for the wrestling business, but along with the allegations, I think she just needs to be honoured in the Hall of Fame, the Wrestling Hall of Fame and WWE Hall of Fame. And then because people don't want, with it being more public and more sponsors, they shouldn't bring her up because of those allegations, because people will not accept it. I don't think she's on the ban list though. I don't think she's not. It's not on the ban list. So there's certain people that are, like Chris Benoit is, which I'm to do a video about him and his controversy, not his career. Because obviously he did do a lot for wrestling, but in wrestling, but he's not a trailblazer or that important to wrestling in a sense. The only reason why I did Fabian Mueller's career is because she was important at the time towards women's wrestling, and she did a lot for it. But it's mainly going to be like controversy as well. So I thought, do the WrestleMania controversy and do this, because it's just the link. I'm not. If I did just the WrestleMania one, it would have been so short. So, but yeah, I think the next one I'm going to do probably Chris Benoit's controversy.